Welcome, everyone, to the Authors Quill. I hope everyone's having a grand day today, a wonderful afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be listening to us around the world. I know I was just talking to somebody in Australia just a little while ago, so I hope y'all having a good day down here. What is it? Sunday over there, isn't it? Yeah, so happy Sunday to our friends in Australia and that part of Asia. Yeah, happy Sundays. For everybody else, happy Saturday. What's that, Bruce? What is it? The UK 6 hours behind us, so it's 10:15 there, right? It's early, yeah. So they're getting to listen to us. So it's not like when I got to listen to us on. Just last night, somebody had written into the show. It was 6 a.m. They were listening to us. Yes, it was kind of strange how that worked out. But welcome anyway. We have Hugh Howey going to be joining us in a little while, and then what's that, Johnny? For the first hour, yeah. So I'm gonna hit him up again if I don't see him in the next second or two.
I just emailed him too.
Oh, so John just hit him up too. What are you talking about? No, he's the first hour guest. No, I was just wondering, you was throwing stuff all over my computer. I was kind of like, what are you talking about? Yeah, no. No, anyway, we got Robert J. Sawyer with us for the second hour. By the way, both these guys are judges for Writers of the Future. Of course, they have all kind of other accolades to their careers, which we'll get into when we're talking to them. But I really hope everybody's been enjoying the shows lately. I see we've been getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people. Well, last two shows, we got a lot of feedback from, yes. Everybody enjoyed the shows, and I know somebody had written to me about Gigi, who's a hyper, like most of the people I know. Yeah, you get Friday nights. 3 to 4 hours, depending on what kind of mood we're in, how tired everybody is. Sometimes it runs to midnight, sometimes it runs to 1 a.m. But yeah, come by and see us. No, John doesn't allow me to talk about that stuff here. He says, bad JoJo, bad JoJo. He's like, no, you can't talk about that kind of stuff. I may be in Hollywood. I'm hoping I'm working with a company right now who's talking about bringing me out to film about something that I love talking about. No, I can't tell you. Because you never know at these Hollywood companies. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. All I can tell you is we've been talking about it. And they said it sounded good. That's all I can tell you. Oh, yes. Well, it'll either be L.A. or New York. That's where I'd go to film, L.A. or New York. Well, no, I get to see John if I go to LA. If I go to New York, I don't know if I want to go to New York right now. I don't know how safe it is for Southern people in New York. I'm a little worried. I'd have to fake a Boston accent or something. Yeah. Get a Bostonian accent or something. You mean this show? All you have to do is write to myself or John if you want to be a guest. I mean, you either have to be an author and an illustrator. We don't do anybody else. No, you either have to be an author and illustrator. Yeah. No. What do you mean, a cartoonist? That's an illustrator and author. I mean, it's the same thing. All right, we're not going to argue with you. I'm bringing a guest on because I can see we've got one of those kind of audience. See, I was with me last night. Didn't get enough sleep. That's what happened. Let's see what's going on. It's yes. Yes, and yes, and we're going to get started now. I see Hugh Howey's in the group with us. So, Mr. Hugh Howey, how you doing today?
Hey, man, how are you, John?
We're good, and John's hanging in there. We're all alive.
Hey, Hugh.
Good.
Hey,
It's
John.
always a good sign. It's always a good sign that they still have energy left over from Friday. So.
Yeah.
So, are you in Florida now, or London?
Yeah, we just got
what?
back. We just got back to Miami. We were in Charleston for for a premiere party. Season 2 just started last night, so we had to go up and be part of that. And now we're back home for a couple weeks.
Now you can't just tell the audience season 2. They're all they're going to be sending me emails now. Season 2 of what? Season 2 of what? What are you talking about?
Season 2 of Silo. Yeah, the second half. So Wool, the novel that Silo is based on. The first season only told the first half of the novel, so now we're telling the second half of the story.
Oh, this ought to be interesting.
And then what happens? Is it just a 2-season run, or is it going to be more as you write your next book?
It's going to be more. So there's a trilogy, and the second and third books are going to be told over 2 more seasons.
Okay.
And we're currently filming season 3, and we've got season 4 written. So the chances are we'll get to tell the whole story.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Although I really enjoy, I'm one of those old fashioned guys. I like reading the book and let my mind run with all the different characters and what they look like. And quite possible, the budget in my head is much bigger, even though you've got a big budget with your TV series. My budget's even bigger.
Yeah, our imaginations, the budget's infinite.
Exactly.
The budget's infinite, but it's limited in some ways. Like I don't have the visual imagination that people who build sets and create costumes and do all these things do for a living.
Fair enough.
So like what people are wearing when I read a book is very basic. And then I see the costumes in a TV show. I'm like, whoa, that's much better than what I was thinking of.
Yeah. I'm not so much into the costume, that stuff. I'm mostly into when I read a book, I know what the girl looks like. I know what the guy looks like. You know, I'm more of a people person. So I can think with that in terms of how they look and stuff like that. That's not as important to me. Although other people, it's really important too. I like the person, that's why your books are really good with that too. Cause you've got the different types of characters with the adults and the children and how they grow. And so, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think you want to give the reader like a little bit of a nudge, but let them fill in some details on their own. And that's where adaptations, even if you don't watch the whole show, if you've just seen the ads and you're a fan of a series, once you've seen the characters a couple of times,
yeah,
it replaces your imagination, which sometimes is not a great thing. Sometimes the character in your head, you've lived with them for decades before the adaptation. And then you're like, and now like, I loved Ender's Game, and they all looked a certain way in my head. The movie comes out like 30 years later, and now those actors are now how I have to see those characters.
Yeah. But then talking with Scott Carter, which I'm sure you've had a conversation with him too, where his main problem, or one of his main problems is that they weren't teenagers. They were children. The main thing in Battle School, they were children. So they weren't what they were in the movie. And there definitely wasn't a romance in there.
But it's really hard to cast that. I think
for sure, it's impossible.
If you did it animated, like if you look at how some of the anime out there, you have like really young characters in anime doing outrageous things. But
right.
It's hard to do that live action and get away with it.
Yeah, that's for sure. But anyway, I mean, it's very exciting that because this is your second book made into TV.
Yeah, we had 2. It's crazy. Like in the middle of the pandemic, I had 2 different projects get greenlit on back-to-back days, unrelated to each other, and both went into production at the same time.
Wow.
And then both came out the same year. And this doesn't happen to you once in your lifetime as a writer. Like I have some, friends who are much better known, household name, big bestsellers, who still haven't gotten one of their projects off the ground after years of options in Hollywood, development. So yeah, it's like I can't just get lucky once. I have to get lucky twice. It's crazy.
Hey, if you got what the people want, that's all that matters. If you keep the audience entertained.
But you're a sailor.
Yeah.
That's pretty non sequitur, but you're just like, whatever. Okay, I'll go stay to Australia and I'll see whatever happens when I land.
I think that did play. I think that helped me out. And I've written about this. I think Hollywood really appreciates people who don't care about Hollywood. I think it's a draw for them. I've been in meetings before where they're like trying to convince me something's going to get made, and I'm very lackadaisical about it because I just don't believe it. And I think it gets them riled up. And I've got other friends who are like, I got one call from a producer, and now I'm going to get my TV show made. I'm like, man, that attitude not only
you're delusional.
Yeah, you're probably going to be disappointed, but also you're probably going to scare off everyone trying to make the deal happen. Like just they don't really want you there as part of the deal. They want your IP, they want your ideas, and then just stay out of the way until they've got enough going for them to be excited about it. But again, it's a lot of post-hoc reasoning. No one knows why anything happens in that industry. So
yeah, like with talking with Kevin Anderson, you know him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So talking with him and Brian on the Dune TV series, it was like and the movies. It was like easily a decade before anything. It was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And they're just, it was like a whatever type thing. They were just, and then, oh, it's happening. You know, it wasn't something that they were like, it wasn't a make or break thing for them. I mean, Kevin does his 2, 3, 4 books a year, and he just keeps on doing it. He grows his empire. You know, gets his master's degree and teaches a master's class, and then he's got a publishing house, and then he's doing his thing. Then he gets a movie deal. Now he got the TV, and I sent him a picture as we were going home, because we're living near Hollywood, and right there on entering Hollywood, there's a big billboard of the Dune TV series, and at the top says, based on the name of the Dune book by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. So we took a picture and sent that to him, and he's like, yay! You know,
it's so cool when it finally starts happening after, you know, because it took us like 10 years of doing deals and options and changing who we're working with before something got made. And I guess like Kevin always had so much else going on that I was able to ignore it. And, and it made it feel like it happened really quickly. And I think if you're banking on it, hoping it'll happen, 10 years would feel like a lifetime.
Oh yeah. It's, you know, it would too. I get aggravated now when they ask me to do something. They say, well, we'll call you. I said, okay, so you mean I'll hear from you in 6 months or a year, right? Oh no, it'll be a week. I mean, yeah, okay, sure. And yeah, about 6 months later, the phone call. Hey, are you ready to do that? Can you like free up your next 3 weeks and so we can bring you wherever we want? I'm like, maybe. Well, what are we talking about? It is. I don't know how y'all do it, because I'm just doing guest appearances or editing or narrating, stuff like that. I don't know how with a series, how it just doesn't drive you over the edge some days.
Yeah, I think you have to appreciate the opportunity to work in the field whenever you're summoned, because you can't choose when to do this. Like later in life, you're like, well, now I'm gonna make a TV show. Like you just don't have, even the biggest names in Hollywood can't just choose to get a project made. So, you know, when you have the opportunity, you just have to do it for the enjoyment and the learning experience, and then be prepared to never hear from them again the rest of your career, and that's fine.
Maybe you'll turn out like, oh, now his name right under it. He did all kind of sci-fi movies in the 50s, man. He did like the Little Short People, Will Robinson. Man, what the hell is his name? He must have like 12 or 13 sci-fi series to his name, television series. Why can't I remember this guy's name? Well, sooner or later it'll come back to my head, but he did all of them. He did pretty much all of the weird sci-fi series that were on TV back then. He was the one to make them. And I was just, man, you know, if you get a niche and you're good, we might be watching you for that. Hopefully we will for the next 20 years or so, next 30 years or so. It's
we'll see.
Mike Resnick, Hugh. I don't know did you ever meet Mike Resnick, Hugh?
Yeah, I met Mike.
Yeah, so he used to love it. I mean, he never had any of his shows made into TV series, but he used to love it when he got optioned again. You know, I made more money on the option than I did on the actual book itself. So it was this is Hollywood Boulevard. So it's he was like, he loved Hollywood. He didn't really care. He just wanted to do his books. He was an author, and that's what he wanted to do. And if he got his options for it and made more money, then that's great. He was able to do more trips, you know, and if it made a TV series, that's fine. If not, that's fine. It wasn't a big deal for him. You know, he said it's sinful the amount of money that gets thrown away there in Hollywood. So it was okay with him if some of it went his way.
The comparing Hollywood to publishing, like the catering budget for a Hollywood production will be more than the big advance that some author will brag about in publishing. Like they're just different realms, but different levels of fandom as well. Like you know, way more people will go see a bad film than will read a New York Times bestseller. So
that's
different categories.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah.
It's I know it's got to be still get exhausted, but getting 2 back to back, that must have just been fabulously wonderful.
It was wild.
So what did you like? Split yourself in half? I'm going here. I'm going here.
Yeah, at one point I was in Toronto for the filming of Beacon 23, and like flew from there to London to be on the set of Silo, and like just like flying from one set to another felt pretty surreal. And I've appreciated every moment of it, because you just never know when anything like that will ever happen to again. But right now, my writing partner and I have like 5 shows we're pushing forward, and we keep working on a lot of things because we realize the chances of any of them making it to the next step are very small. So we need lots of stuff going. And so far, everything we've worked on has gotten yeses to the next step. And we're foreseeing a little problem here where like maybe it could be a bad thing if like more than one of them gets made. Like we would get very busy very quickly.
I did a recent interview with someone who's like a historian for Rod Serling, and Rod Serling was the it man in Hollywood as a screenwriter in the late 50s, early 60s, and he created the Twilight Zone as a solution to. He was trying to do shows that weren't politically correct, that point out social injustice and stuff like that, but they wouldn't allow that because it violated their standards and practices, as bizarre as they invariably are. So he created the Twilight Zone to put it into another universe, another world. But he was so busy, he'd write something and it'd get rejected and they'd say something else. So he 24 hours later, he'd have another story written. He was just that. He was like so much in demand that he was wanted by so many different projects that he was doing. And for multiple years, I mean, he died of, he had cancer, and he was, he smoked like a chimney constantly, and whatever, his schedule was obviously pretty bad, but he did it, and everybody wanted him because he wrote gold, whatever flowed from his hands, they consider as gold. So you're kind of like, maybe you're, they just consider you like you're the golden boy right now, and however long it runs on that course, definitely play those cards until someone decides that you're no longer the golden boy, but make hay while you've got it is another perspective.
Yeah, that's my attitude, and we just try to enjoy it while we can.
Yeah,
and the good thing is, Matt and I, my partner, we both are authors first and foremost. We come from a world where we can control our fate anytime we want. So when we can't get any work in Hollywood, we'll write and publish novels. And even if it's for a small audience, it's the only thing we ever set out to do anyway.
Yeah, which is, I think it's just brilliant on your part that you can do that, because you have your base, and some people have their base as a 9 to 5. Your base is an author, which is very.
I get to fall back on a dream job.
Yeah, which is so cool. Which brings, when's your next book coming out? Because I remember we did an interview on the podcast when you came out with Across the Sand. I think was the last podcast that we did, part of announcing that book coming out. But was that your last, or?
Yeah, that was the last, my last novel.
Yeah,
I've got the 3rd book in that series. Should be out next year. That's the one that I'm working on now. But I'm also writing. Haven't really talked about this publicly, but I'm working on a series of short stories in the Silo universe, and I'm going to publish those in between seasons 2 and 3 when there's a bit of a lull, so people can spend some time in the silos while they're waiting on the next season.
Oh, that's cool. I would like to talk to you then, if you're interested, then before number 3 comes out and you're following Across the Sand, because that's an awesome series. It's
I'm so proud of those books. I'm writing those for myself, and I think once the trilogy's done, I'm going to be more proud of those 3 books than probably anything else I've ever done.
No, it's really good, that humanity in there, and just that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter if someone makes a set or something like that. The people are so much more real, and like the kids, and like how they, it's been a couple years since I read it, but I just still remember that there was the kid that was always getting beat up, or was some other was on the other side. They were the poor side, and but they were picking up the rocks and making the little pathway or something like that.
Yeah. The way he was removing hiding the missiles in plain sight in order to get, to alleviate some suffering. That was a pretty cool turn.
Yeah. So it was definitely great. And just like, you wouldn't, expect that, but then and then how they escape through that, I guess it's a train or an old train that they then get on and escape the town with the rich girl and him, something like that. It was just like,
yeah, I don't know where some of that's coming from, but like there's more like raw imagination in those books, and I think it's because I'm not really writing those for any kind of audience or even a genre. It's just like going back to what I used to do when I was in middle school and high school. I would just sit and daydream in class, or I still do this to some degree.
Don't tell that to Mr. Baker, who was your teacher in 7th grade.
They know. They busted me all the time. If they called on me, I had no idea what was happening in class. And looking back, one of my favorite TED Talks, I think it was like the most watched TED Talk until pretty recently, Sir Robbins, this TED Talk about education. And he talks about how the world needs dancers, which is obvious, right? If you go to Broadway, there's professional dancers everywhere. There's dancers all over the world making a living at dance. But our education system, through grade school and high school, doesn't act like dancing is going to be a profession. It's these core subjects you have to learn. And some kids cannot sit still in their seats because they're born to be dancers. And we beat that out of them until they flourish like later in life. And you should see this TED Talk. It's incredible. Wow. And when I listened to it, I was like, wait a second. My entire school career was me getting in trouble for reading under the desk and having my books taken from me and daydreaming. And my body and brain, I wanted to be a writer. Like I knew when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a science fiction writer. Mm-hmm. And everything that I was doing was in service of that. And I was getting in trouble for it. And, I think we need to be a little more open to seeing like that the world needs many different professions. And some of these kids that, like, let's say they just want to play video games all day. They're professional video game players and designers and producers. And instead of...
I was just thinking it's funny you said that because Elon Musk just gave a lecture, it was the day before yesterday, on how schools need to be rewritten because we're not here to teach them how to work in factories and this, that, and the other thing anymore. He said today it's more about the arts and sciences. He said this is something that we never taught in the past unless you were in college. This was not, or in a private school, you just weren't going to see this kind of education. He said we're not this world of the 20s and 30s and 50s anymore. We're the world of 2024, which is different. We have cell phones. Everybody carries around a pretty powerful computer in their hand, much more so than anything that we use to put it on the space shuttle on the moon or Apollo on the moon. He said kids today need to be looked at what their gifts are. He said not necessarily we don't need to go around testing them because we don't want to turn to a communist country. He said, but we need to appreciate people's gifts and give them the correct guidance. With those gifts.
I agree with that.
So I'm hoping.
I hope so too. I'll get the quote wrong, but John Adams had this amazing line. He was in London, I think. He was writing his wife Abigail back in the States, and he just said this beautiful thing about I have to study war and politics so that my children can study engineering and civics and all these other things in order to be builders, so that their children can study the arts and be artists. And if you look at our, course in history, we're just moving to that. We're more and more professions now are in the arts.
Yes.
Look, Hollywood. How many TV shows? How much movie? How many?
Look how much TV there is. We're on Roku right now. You're on Roku television right now with all of us.
Yeah,
so we broadcast live every day. And just that alone has 10,000 channels on it. God knows what. Yeah, so when I first
all
got
these professions didn't exist, and that's a beautiful future. But you see some people who are like, we're getting weak. Like all these people just, we used to be gladiators and we were alpha. We went to war, and now everyone's like an artist. I'm like, but John Adams saw 200 years ago that this was the beautiful future ahead for us, where we got to be creative people rather than warmongering people.
And which we should be. We should be.
Sure.
But don't think those creative people won't get them kick some ass if you start trying to take their rights away from them.
That's true.
It's
it should be a
as
choice,
Americans,
though. You shouldn't be forced.
As Americans, I agree 100%. We should be able to lead our lives for what we want to lead them for, not be told how to do it. Have the opportunities to do it, because I meet a lot of talented, gifted people who just, for whatever reason, don't have the money to get into the right schools or get in a position where somebody can actually find them. I've been lucky because I've put myself in positions where I can be found, but a lot of people can't do that. So you score right, I don't want to say right off the bat because 10 years not right off the bat, but still you're working away, you're scoring. So, but now you're in the eye, people know who you are. They're going to be like, oh yeah, let's go check out you. You did some good work. What you got now? And as well as I do, you're only as good as your last work anyway in this industry. So it's, but I do see some change where we are starting to look at people differently and say, hey, look, well, you might be good in electronics. You might be good here. Maybe college isn't the right way. Maybe an art school or maybe a tech school might be the way for you. And, but I think we need to teach the teachers to recognize these things. I really do. And I think if we do, people like me and you we just can go ahead and do whatever we're doing and not have to worry about this kind of stuff anymore.
And, you mentioned a little bit earlier that Hugh about the, how we're in class, that you're always being called out. We had one of our keynote speakers, maybe 8 years or so ago now, Simon Pete Warden. He was the director of Ames Research Center for NASA. And he told this story how he was always in history class. He'd have this book open, and then inside the book, he had a pulp magazine. He'd be reading, and he'd be caught by the teachers and says, "What are you reading?" And I'm reading the future of the world and, the future history. So he was like, told him. And then for him, which I've seen, because we've had so many astronauts over the years, it's because of science fiction, fantasy, mostly science fiction that they read that inspired them. And that's the arts inspiring. You've got the generals, of course, and you're going to have, that type of person, but you're going to also have the creatives who can be inspired, and the scientists, the engineers, because we've also had 2 or 3 of the engineers that put the rovers, the various incarnations of rover on Mars, as our keynote speakers as well over the years. And they're just, it's like what you wrote in your science fiction, dystopian or not, it's still, because those are, the dystopian also acts as a warning, so it also can have you look at different things and go different directions. But I think all of it has to, come into play. But just when you're talking about that, the problem you had in school, the same thing that Pete Warden had, and he was. Sounds
very familiar. I would do the same thing. I would have my book tucked into the textbook, and
yeah, I know.
It would get taken away. I would cut class. I would skip class to go hang out in the library and read other books, and get in trouble for that. And
so
looking back,
you would have loved where I went to school. I was going to Britannia private school, and they would take us to like Tulane to the Tulane library and just let us spend once a week. We could spend 4 hours a day going through this library. It's a fabulous Ivy School library, all kind of stuff, not just the books, the maps. I mean, still to this day, it's a beautiful library. I used to love spending time in there. I would get lost. I get in trouble every time because I go get lost. And, if it's time to go, I didn't even know. An hour later, they're looking for me. Oh, are you ready to leave? Yeah, no.
Like, no, I live here now.
Oh, yeah, because this place was great. I mean, not just the books. I mean, it was just, but it was nice. They also took us to concerts and operas and stuff like that. It was a different way to grow up. And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't have that.
That's where everybody should get to grow up. That's what I'm saying. Everybody should get to grow up like that. All schools should be like that.
So what were you saying there, Hugh?
Oh, just how lucky he is. I didn't have those kinds of opportunities and exposure growing up. I grew up in a very small town, and I'm amazed at what kids know about and are exposed to these days. Because we didn't have the internet. I didn't know anything happening outside of my little corner of North Carolina, like global politics.
So you're over there on where you are there in the South. I'm here in Los Angeles, and you ask the average kid, anything on civics, on history,
don't waste your time.
You don't know anything, but you ask, the name of all the Kardashians' kids, and they can rattle them off. Who's the oldest? Who was this? Who was that? And it's actually quite disheartening here in California from my perspective, because I'm definitely more conservative than we have over here. You know, you got this little sliver going up the coast of blue, and I'm in the middle of that, and it's that's just not my thing. But you know, I think I respect our history in the degree that you know it and understand it. You can also help avoid it in the future. And the easiest way to get it to come back is to rob that understanding, and it didn't exist, you know. And so you see like what you have happening over here, which, you know, different, what for me was heroes like Ben Franklin, you know, start getting canceled because he had slaves. Yet you have all these things that he did that were like, the country came to fruition because of a lot of his things, and a lot of things that we do are because of him. It's just this misplaced importances and priorities, which I'm like, the value of being able to read and what you do, and like the way you grew up, just being able to read and have access to everything, what Joe talks about too. It gives you the choice, the freedom of choice to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think I love history, but I also think that we rarely have perspective on history. Like, we don't usually get things right, and we never will. So what history usually ends up doing is being a good tool for justifying our passions today. Like, whatever our biases are and our political views, we can use history to reinforce our story. So people who are you know, anti-communists can go look at what happened in Ukraine and how many people starved because of a central planning failure, and say communism will never work. And then you look at how many things China has been able to accomplish in a very short period of time in the last 50 years. And someone who's pro-communist, communism could say, well, man, like, look at their high-speed trains and how many people they pull out of poverty and all these other things. But then, you know, they're living under a totalitarian regime, so the other side could tell their story. I think what we're really doing is just trying to justify the passions that we have inside of ourselves. I think the passions come first, and then everything else after that is the story that we tell to try to prop it up.
But you're an author, and you can translate that, and you can write these amazing stories with your passions as they come out. And
that's what I try to do. I
know, and so it gives you the ability also to be perhaps a bit more objective about it, you know, in discussing, because you've thunk these things through, you know. And
I think I'm more detached from. I'd like to write a nonfiction book about the challenge of holding different scales simultaneously in your life. Like you should be able to at the same time realize how miraculous our bodies are. That like each cell is doing something pretty extraordinary. Just the mitochondria producing energy, the cytoplasm, like the way they divide, the way they and all of them are working in unison to have this walking, moving, like automaton that can sit here and have conversations with you guys, can fall in love with another human, all these other things we do. It's miraculous. At the same time, we're all little specks on a ball of mud flying through the cosmos that is so vast our brains can't comprehend how empty, cold, and absolutely dead the universe is. And so we're gigantic miracles, and we're minuscule, like insignificant things at the exact same time.
At the same time, yep.
And if you lean too hard on one of those, you lose the other. So if you become very existential and you're like, the human life means nothing, you're missing something out. Or if you think that humans are the apex of all creation, you're also missing some of the humility.
That's missing something.
But how do you hold both of those at the same time? And Silo, which season 2 really gets into this, even the opening scene of the second season, the very first part of the first episode, shows you what happens when revolutions succeed. And sometimes it's worse than the thing that they were revolting against. And that's kind of the foundation of this whole second season is it's good to be revolutionary, but like it's much easier to burn things to the ground than it is to build something better than what you're destroying.
For sure.
And we've seen that throughout human history. Like the French Revolution just led to Napoleon, and he was far worse than what they were getting rid of. Cromwell, the bloodless revolution in England, led to Cromwell, and he was worse. Russia has had many attempts to make things better, and every time they've made it worse. So I think someone who gets to write about dystopias, I think I get to play with this idea that both sides, you know, in this case, the mechanics and IT, if they both got 100% of what they wanted in the world, it would lead to everyone's death and misery. And how do you get those two sides to have the best of themselves come together? And we're not doing a good job of that in the United States. Like we're sometimes we're getting the worst of the two sides in combination. And I think we need to have more of that dialogue. Like anybody who thinks that the Republicans, you know, have everything figured out and the Democrats need to do everything they want to do, they're out of their minds. Like both sides are so extreme in trying not to be like the other that if they did all the things they actually said, they would destroy civilization. Like what they're actually trying to do is find balance with their counterparts. And we need to figure out how to have that balance instead of having it a winner take all.
I'm gonna have to invite you on News and a Flip Side. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time, by the way. We think we had to do political season to last year, but we're done with that now. It's over. The election's over. We can get back to what our favorite things are. It's talking about whatever the hell we feel like talking about. And that's, matter of fact, we touched on that very thing a little bit last night because we had he was an interrogator in Iraq. He's a fellow author, and he was telling me how being an author helps him to get past the stuff that went on in Iraq. You know, how it's good therapy for him. And we got to talking about how no one really seems to care about what we, the people as a whole, really are looking for. While everybody else is just seeking power, we're just seeking peace. And it just doesn't seem to come our way for some reason. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. There are some good things that happen, but I don't know. But it just seems like for every one good thing, there's 5 bad ones.
There's an interesting what you said there, Hugh. There's a series that I have wrote in the Pulp Fiction called The Kilkenny Cats, because you're talking about the different types of people in your beginning of season 2 of Silo. You had then the working class. You had the technical. These 3 different classes, and they all when the longshoremen then took over, they had it all figured what they needed, but then that created a worse scene. And it's like this like thing that gets done, you know, throughout history. You know, today's solution becomes tomorrow's problem. Is like it's just a constant turn of events like that.
Yeah, Back to the Future, the second Back to the Future film really was one of the first times as a young fan of sci-fi that I got to see this idea played out, where you keep trying to make a change and you keep making things worse. Another thing I loved about watching those old time travel shows was the idea that a small action could lead to a huge change in the future.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah, and I saw someone had this great quote recently. I can't remember who said it, but it's funny how we assume that in these shows about time travel, that you could go back, make a small change, and it would lead to these enormous consequences. But almost nobody believes that about themselves in the present, that what I do today, if I make a small change, it'll have enormous consequences in the future. So we feel helpless in contemporary life, but as time travelers, we feel all powerful. And I think we need to challenge that. I think we need to realize that our present self is pretty powerful, and that the decisions that we make resonate out and have a huge impact. And think of ourselves as time travelers. You know, we're just trapped here, but we are affecting the future. It is certain that the future is going to unfold in some way. and we have been placed here to have some effect on it.
Well, you know, I try to tell people every day we're astronauts. They're like, no, we're not. I said, oh, yeah. I said, we're living on a ball.
We're on a spaceship.
Air bubble around it that's hurling around the circle to 63,000 miles a minute. I mean, an hour. And then, of course, our whole solar system is hurling itself through the galaxy.
Yeah.
And wait, our galaxy is hurling itself through the universe. I said, yeah, we're astronauts. People just deal with it.
Joe, I do the same thing. When people are like, do you ever want to go to space? I'm like, where do you think we are?
Yeah, where are we?
We are in space. And also, like, should we build a rocket ship and go somewhere? I'm like, okay, if you could design the ultimate rocket ship to travel through the cosmos, it would look just like Earth. It would, you would take all your friends and family with you, and all the lakes and oceans and all the food supply, and like we're just restless. Like, why are we getting on a ship and heading off in the other direction? We're currently.
That's why we're going to colonize.
You've read Larry Niven's Ringworld.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that guy's got the whole thing. It's like huge.
Well, I mean, we're going to colonize no matter what. Now that we found out there's so many planetoids and planets, over 500 in the solar system. A bunch of them they think is going to have life on it now. Before anybody asks, I don't think they mean intelligent life.
Explore, you know, how many people are like, I mean, just the whole mentality of the explorers. Like,
it'll be good though. We need to get 4 billion people off the planet. I mean, really, go live on Mars, go live on Venus, go wherever. Get the hell out of here. I'll tell you what. Whoever gets that asteroid,
not on board with that.
Whoever gets that asteroid is going to be the guy. You think Elon got money? Whoever gets that asteroid, so it's worth the Earth 500 million times over. That's what its actual worth is.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be worth that once you got it here, because the markets would realign. Like,
well, I don't think you could even get it. You'd probably take it to Mars and cut it up or somewhere like that. I don't even think you'd get it there. I think you'd have to.
Yeah, but like, what do they value it at? Like, we don't need that much platinum. You know, like, so it all comes back, and now platinum is cheap.
After the first couple of 100 tons, it starts going down in price, or like that place where they think they found that diamond that's the size of a Volkswagen. Well, that's great, but who can wear that? I don't think that's going to fit on my finger.
Yeah, but people line up to take a selfie.
Put it on top of the pyramid or something. I mean,
it'd be huge on TikTok. That thing.
But I mean, yeah, granted, the asteroid belt will be good for us in the future, because we will.
I disagree. I think humans in space are a terrible idea.
Because we're going to be stupid. That's why. But
because we're still humans up there, and like, if you think terrorism is bad now, imagine what you have to do is like nudge a rock into orbit. Like, just having 4 billion of us running around out there, like, we cause way too much trouble. Well,
that's how they do it in
expanse. Those guys are smart. They're thinking things through. Like, we're not going to be cohesive up there. We're going to fracture and war with each other. I think it's a much quicker path to our extinction to make us multiplanetary than it is for us to stay here and have to figure out how to get along with each other.
That's how that's how the series Expanse went until they met extraterrestrials, and then it's put everything in stop, because then it was no longer all of us against each other. Then it was all of us against. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
So that, other than, and Reagan said that in 7 speeches, it would take an extraterrestrial invasion to unite this planet. He meant it too, because I don't know what else would do it. Everybody's too happy in their misery.
I think if we all like once a month dropped MDMA all together, and I think that might help us. We need some kind of chemical intervention, because we have too much of our evolutionary insanity going on in our brains.
Half the planet's HD, DDHDT. I mean, they can't. Most everybody know. I'm guilty. I can't. If I sit still for too long, I'll get antsy. I'll get in trouble doing something I shouldn't be doing. I need to be moving, challenging things, changing things. Being involved.
That's what gets us in trouble.
And I agree with you 100%.
That's what's wrong with humans.
I agree with that 100%. I tell my son all the time, I said, you need to learn how to chill. I said, don't be like your daddy and run around in circles. You just chill a little while. He's like, and he's better at it. I mean, he likes to write. He likes to sit down and write. I don't know what he's writing, but he likes to sit and write.
Yeah, the funny thing is, everybody is running around trying to figure out how to lay down. Like, everyone wants to take it easy, and they have no idea how to do it. When I got to sailing, I think I learned more about humans sailing around the world than I did with all my book reading about human psychology and evolutionary psychology, trying to figure out what's going on. Like, you get to these different cultures, some of them have it figured out, and you never hear about it, because part of figuring it out is you're not going around telling people you figured it out. You're just doing the thing.
So nobody will move to where you live.
You get to Fiji, and the Fijians are like in the out islands, the remote islands. They're laying under palm trees, like with their families, laughing, making jokes, eating the same 3 meals a day, drinking kava, fishing. Like it looks like retirement, but they do it their whole lives, and that's all they need to do. And the foreigners who move in, who are running the shops and hustling and driving themselves crazy, are working really hard to one day go lay on a beach, just like the Fijians do their whole lives. And I'm simplifying 2 very different cultures. But it really stood out to me that like some cultures have got it figured out, and others are really working way too hard trying to get to that same place.
Yeah, because we don't. Well, I think the real problem is good chunk of the planet doesn't know actually where it's going yet. It's just running in the dark, hoping that it runs into something good. Because I see too many people. What do you ask? Oh, I'm after money. Okay, well, once you got that, what you going to do? Well, I'm going to travel. I said, well, where are you going to travel to? What are you going to do? Are you going to help anybody? Are you going to visit anybody? I mean, I do a lot of traveling, but I get involved in stuff. But I can't help myself. I like to travel on what you would call the local. So when I travel, I want to know somebody local wherever I go. Doesn't matter where in the world it is. I want to know. And being in the Navy, I got to go about 35 countries, and I always met somebody local, and they always show you all the good stuff. All the fun stuff, stuff that don't put you in a poorhouse when you sit. And I do the same for people who come to New Orleans. I said, look, let me show you where to go eat. Stay away from the ones along the Riverwalk. It's just a bunch of tourist stuff. All the food's just going to be really, really hot and really expensive, and that's all it's going to be. So let me show you where they got the good tasting food. And you'll have a better time. It's
good to have a guide.
It is, and a lot of little hidden corner places are and stuff like that. So you can go show people that walk around and eat where it's safe to hang out, where it's nice. Poor John and Emily had drug him out to the park to eat beignets, and all 3 of us are dressed in black, no glass.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man,
black with white all over us.
Yeah, we were white speckled, but it's a good place in a city park for beignets early in the morning. It's always a good place to go hang and have beignets, watch the crazy people. What's that, Christopher? I don't know. Where can you watch Silo at?
It's on Apple TV.
Oh, it's on that evil Apple television. Okay, now I know.
For sci-fi,
we do.
Apple is absolutely killing it for sci-fi. Between Severance and Foundation and Silo, they've just and Mythic Quest. Like I think even before we did this deal with them, I was really becoming a huge fan, because it seemed like HBO had stopped being like the place for the big.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to HBO. They just I don't know what happened. They went out, and then I don't know. And Netflix was doing good for a while, and then they kind of went, because I liked Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon was a good series, but it couldn't keep itself together. And The Expanse is a good series. It was a good book. It was a good, they just went.
Well, I'm just happy that Wednesday's coming back for season 2.
Yes. I like any type of near now sci-fi. I can't help myself on that.
It's not sci-fi at all. It's just fun, Addams Family humor.
Yeah, I love that show. Like she's so good.
She is awesome.
Addams Family's always funny. What's that, Bruce? No, that's a lot of good funny stuff out there. I like good comedy, and I don't like any sci-fi that don't have some comedy in it. There's something wrong about that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like sacrilege.
I like the sci-fi that doesn't have love or humor in it. It's weird to me, because that's such a huge part of human
because it is.
Yeah.
Well, tell people all the time when you're in a crucial spot, sometimes somebody's going to crack a joke just to break the tension. Whatever the tension, the fear, whatever it happens to be. I know when I was in Special Forces training, somebody always crack a joke because he would figure, oh, whoa, we're going to get blown up in about 2 minutes. Would you rather go out frowning or go out smiling? Really, let's be honest about it. So, I mean, I see hope for the world, but I see a lot of stuff that we have to figure out how to correct first.
That goes back to that holding 2 opposite things at the same time. There's always misery happening somewhere on the planet, and there's always beautiful things happening at the same time. And finding joy or beauty doesn't mean that you don't care about the suffering that's happening, and wallowing in the suffering doesn't make that part of the world a better place, it can often make the part that you're in worse. And so you have to like really, it's a difficult thing to do, but again, it's like holding the scale of the universe and the scale of you versus the microcosm at the same time. You have to really be able to want justice and end to suffering, and also find beauty in things, and holding those simultaneously is like very tricky. But there's a
well, I think it became a lot easier for you when you found your goddess to be able to
helped.
That definitely helped.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My wife is like kind of justified my romanticism. I will say, like, I've been a hopeless romantic my whole life since I was, before I was a teenager, and I dreamed of a partnership like I have now.
Yeah. Shay is such a beautiful woman, Joe. When you meet her one day, you'll be able to see she is awesome. She's, they basically fold into each other quite nicely. He'll look at her like, what did I do to make this happen with her? But she's got the same perspective, so they deserve each other on that.
We have complete harmony. But I believed in it before I found it, and she's just justified my romanticism, and life got a lot better. Yeah.
I told my wife I'm only getting married one time. That's it. I said if you leave me or die, I'm going to get a harem, and that's how it's going to be. We've been married 42 years now. You just don't want me.
Congrats, that's awesome.
So, you just don't want me to have a harem. That's all it is. No, we have a great relationship. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we've been through some stuff, but somehow or another, we always seem to. And she's always there when I need her. So
I'm excited. You guys have Robert coming on next?
Yeah, actually, should be. I just sent him a thing, so he should be popping in any time now. I'll send him again if I don't see him in the next 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah, he's supposed to be joining us. Yeah, last night. The network, because we have so many different kind of shows, we cross a lot of different genres ourselves. It's just because we get into some serious politics and serious news and serious world affairs, and of course, then we get in what is life about, how can you live, very new agey stuff sometimes. But then we get into paranormal ufology. Matter of fact, we got to do a show coming up on this last government on the 13th, when the government had their little committee meeting talking about yaps. I wish somebody changed the name back to UFOs and get rid of that yap word, but yeah, it's UAP, man. Yaps. That's what it is. It's just irritating, but so we got a show coming up on that.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on UAPs? What did you guys come up with?
So for us, it's different. It's still an unidentified flying object, and there's no way anybody can identify everything in the sky at any given time. One of the things I did on the USS Nimitz, the first thing I learned, matter of fact, when I was on the Nimitz, was aircraft recognition. Very first thing I learned. You need to know what's flying in the sky around you at all times, just in case it's somebody that's not supposed to be there. So it gives me a little advantage on everybody, but you just never know what it is. And it's kind of, as far as trying to say there's not life besides us, it's just ignorant. We're talking in a universe that has hundreds of trillions of planets. So in our own galaxy, there's probably 100 trillion planets or less, somewhere right around there. Odds of there not being life is possible. And NASA's now fed up and said, look, it looks like we're going to find life on Mars, and it looks like we're going to probably find life on a couple of moons and stuff like that. So it's going to be more and more that, there's life out there. The question is really going to be intelligent life, and you watch what happens.
Exactly.
We're going to find
life is for sure out there. Whether or not there's life that has technology, I think.
Well, the universe is 14 billion years old, so obviously there are going to be people out there that are very advanced. It's just, how long is a cycle for life? 1 billion years, 3 billion years,
the thing.
5 billion years.
It might be that once you have technology where you can transmit, like you're getting an electromagnetic spectrum and you're creating radio waves. What if one of the inherent features of intelligent life is that it destroys itself, and so civilization maybe lasts 500 to 1,000 years.
But it could also trick you. So Earth in less than 100 years will become a quiet planet. See, we've been broadcasting noise into the galaxy now for over 100 years. So we got out for 100 light years out, people could find us, but pretty soon everything will be light. There won't be any more radio waves the way we think of radio waves. We'll become a quiet planet. So those people who have been listening to us for 100 years, all of a sudden, it's going to look like we died.
Yeah.
There won't be anything coming from our planet anymore. Did we actually die? Probably not. But, as far as any world out there goes, they could easily think that we died. I'm with you. I don't really know what the lifespan is going to be. I mean, we're 2 million, depending on whose argument you want to go with, 2 million years old now. Will we go 1 billion years? We'll have to get. The only thing I can see saving human race is simply getting off the planet. I can't see us making it more than 1 billion years.
We have to agree to disagree on that. I think the moment we get off the planet in sufficient numbers, we're doomed.
Yeah, well, we're just going to become different races. That's what's going to happen.
It'll make it easier to destroy the Earth. You can destroy the Earth from orbit much easier than you can from here.
It somewhere along the line, somebody might decide that that's the Earth's numbers up. But will it be now? Will it be 100 million years from now when there's nothing left on the planet and nothing worth saving? See, that's the real argument. What time frame is it going to be? Is it going to be after we've used up the planet or before we use up the planet? I don't know. Maybe Robert knows. Let's ask Robert. Robert, man?
I'm gone. Yeah, what's up, Robert?
I'm here. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, Rob.
Good to see you, Hugh. Good to see you, John. Hey, Joe.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, with you. I'm hoping it's long after I'm gone. So we're just talking what the usefulness of our planet, of our species, is going to be. How far into the future we're going to make it.
Are we on the air?
The value, is it going to be good or bad for us to go interplanetary?
Well, Stephen Hawking and many other people besides the good Hugh here have been saying that for some time. All your eggs in one basket has never been good survival strategy. Now, Joe, I heard what you said before I came on about, of course, once people have a vantage point, which was very much in the Cold War. Everybody was talking about getting ICBMs on the moon or into orbit so they could police the Earth. Whoever could control the high frontier would control everything. I like to think that there's an altruistic aspect in people wanting to go to new frontiers and open up new vistas and not just a military perspective on that. But we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, certainly this is not a time where optimism is bearing much fruit.
Well, Elon always scares me when he wants to retire on the moon. He always reminds me of that evil scientist from Moonraker and the James Bond movie. Remember him?
Of course.
We're going to move into space and then we're going to kill everybody on planet and come back. For some reason, when I hear it, I like the guy, but there's something about him that makes me think, is he this evil villain?
Joe,
that we have to. I mean, come on.
We've got two amazing authors here. We don't need to talk about Moonraker here. We've got two brilliant minds. We can pluck for all
ladies and gentlemen, everyone, welcome.
Creative juices.
Robert J. Sawyer just joined us, so welcome, Robert. Officially, we just popped him in the middle of a conversation, but officially he's with us. Hugh Howey said, y'all be sure to go check out the new season 2. So let me know. I guess I'll turn on TV now.
What's channel is that on there, Joe? Silos on what channel?
I'm not saying that nasty word. I'm not saying that nasty word. I'm just kidding. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, we're fixing to add Apple TV and Samsung TV in the next month, so I can't say anything. So we're gonna be adding to the lineup so we can be on there as well. So the only one we're not going to be on for a while is Amazon Fire Stick, and we're going to let them expand a little bit more away from Roku, separate the audiences a little bit. And then we'll
guys, I have another call, so I'll get out of the way so y'all can
go on. We appreciate you coming by.
See you again, Hugh. There, thank you very much for joining
us. It's great, man.
Good to see you.
Well, brother,
Robert.
take care.
Yeah, live long and prosper. See you guys.
Bye, Hugh.
Okay, y'all be sure to go check out your site. It's all posted up on the website, so y'all can go check it out and see what's up and say hi and drop him an email or something good like that. Robert, how have you been doing, man? Life's treating you good or what?
Yeah, it is. I'm hard at work on a new book. My health is good. Weather here in Toronto is unseasonably warm, but not dry like just south of us in the eastern United States, where everything is, going up in flames. We've got rain yesterday and today. So yeah, life is good up here. Up here, it is good.
Yeah, two of my hosts, actually my station manager lives in Toronto. And technically she lives in Niagara Falls. Her host lives in Toronto.
Hour from my place.
Yes, I don't want to get in trouble.
One of the 7 natural wonders of the world, Niagara Falls.
Yes, but she loves it there, and then she's the boss here. I'm just a guy that hangs out.
Right.
But she's the boss. So wait, can you tell us what the new book's about, or is this a sequel?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. So it is a sequel to one of my previously written books, but the publisher wants to make an announcement. So I'm just going by the subtitle right now. The subtitle is Ghosts, plural, Ghosts in the Machine. And as you know, people know, that's a phrase from philosophy. The ghost in the machine is the mind separate from the body. The ghost in the machine is, and ghosts plural. So and I've got a tight deadline, end of January. So I've canceled all kinds of things, including a trip to Spain. But when Carmen at Author Services said he'd got Joe Mataldo, I said, well, I got to do that.
So you know, I always love talking to you.
My Saturday night dinner, and I'm here with you. It's dinner time in Toronto.
Well, I mean, you might have done good by not going to Spain. I had a couple of friends who were going, and they canceled because they said they were talking to some friends of theirs over there, and it's a pretty muddy place at the moment. I guess it depends where you're going.
Disaster they had over there, of course.
Yeah.
And then, even before that, this business with squirt gunning tourists, right? Like a lot of places in Europe, Venice and other places, not that Venice is in Spain, it's in Italy, but a lot of places have been objecting to the huge influx of wealthy Western tourists who are showing up and, crowding out the locals, filling the restaurants. Nobody can get, and so, probably not a good time to be going somewhere where we're maybe not particularly welcome at the moment.
It's funny you said that, because a good friend of mine, Christopher, she actually her name's Christine. I just call her Christopher, but she was in Paris just recently. She said it's the first time she's ever been there that they've been rude to her. She said it's like people, because she did notice there was lines, but she said anytime I start speaking English, they would move me ahead of the line. I was like, you're kidding me, right? She said, no, I'm not. It was, making people upset. And I was like, well, maybe you should have went. She said, Joe, I don't know why they were doing it. I said, because you are a tourist and they're going to give tourists. I said, they do the same thing in New Orleans. They'll pull a tourist up in front of a local any given day, unless it's an ugly local like me. And then they're like, not so much. But they do. They're bad about it. It's something they do. And I guess it's a privilege in Paris and Madrid and Venice. I mean, these are serious. I mean, I got family from Venice. These are serious tourist towns now.
They are. Venice is gorgeous, I must say. My wife and I went a couple of years ago, and I was just amazed. It's more lovely than you think it's going to be.
Oh, it's from I have never had a chance. I've been invited a couple times, and I have family in Italy. I mean, my wife is half Italian. I'm probably 30%. And we both have family over there, but it never seems to work out. Because if I'm going to Europe, I want to spend at least a month. Anything that's like a waste of time, And there are places over there I want to go hang out. And I've been all over Spain. I mean, I've been to Spain, but that was just a stop on the ship. We were going by in Nimitz, and we parked in for a couple of days.
Right. Well, this is one of the things, about the Writers of the Future contest that we love, is we bring winners from all over the world to Los Angeles every April. And for some of these people, some, of course, come from what we call the weird countries, wealthy, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. But some come from very deprived circumstances. We've given them an enormous break, and it's, for some of them, their first time ever on an airplane, first time ever traveling transatlantic or trans-Pacific. And it's one of the reasons I'm so proud to be part of the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. And I'm not a judge for Illustrators of the Future, but our sister contest, Illustrators of the Future, because of this opportunity that people get to bring them somewhere where they've never been and get the kind of tutelage and mentoring that, myself, Hugh Howey, who was with us a moment ago, John Goodwin, who's here with us now, and all the other judges are able to provide.
I was giving a lecture at LSU not that long ago, and Writers of the Future always comes up now for some reason, but I had said, oh no, I said, in order to give what these judges are going to give y'all in 5 or 6 days, you'd have to spend 2 years in college to get. I said, I said, I have learned more about writing and illustrating in the time I've been there than I could spend 5 years in school and still not learning. Plus, I find that they're able to shortcut some things because y'all are showing them the in-betweens.
Well, absolutely. There are a lot of people who teach creative writing at universities, community colleges, what have you, continuing education, who aren't actually well-published or even at all published writers. And what we have here is people who have made their living for decades as writers or as artists in the illustrators contest. And, you know, we're not talking theory out of a textbook. We're talking nuts and bolts practicalities that have let us survive in a very competitive profession for decades. And, you know, in some of our more illustrious cases, made many, 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 many millions of dollars. And even, you know, those who haven't have done way better than average amongst our judges as average writers go. So we're trying to shoot from the hip. We're trying to tell the unvarnished truth and not, tell people anything that they just want to hear, but what they need to hear. And that's a big difference. When you go, you've paid money for a course and you're going to give an evaluation to the instructor at the end, which has a impact on whether the instructor gets to give the course again. The instructor has a vested interest in saying, oh, Benny or Brenda or whoever it is, you're brilliant. This is great. This is so good. And we have no vested interest other than wanting to add to that brag shelf or brag bookcase we have at Author Services of all the books published year after year after year by our illustrious winners. We have no agenda except to tell the truth and give that hand up.
Yeah, and I tell people that all the time. I said, and I mean, I do. I've done it because I've done quite a few colleges in the last. For some reason, this year has been a lot more so than usual. But it always comes up. I mean, and I'm always actually, guys, if you can get there, if you can win this contest and get you there, you're going to help. I said, just winning the contest is going to help your career right off the bat. The fact that you actually won Writers of the Future. And if you get lucky and win the big part, I said, look, you've already stepped your career up. I said, plus, I said, these aren't just writers. They're not just authors. I said, these guys understand how the TV industry works. I said, they know how to self-publish. They know how to do the book work, the paperwork, how to make the money, what to do with the money. I said, it's not the same as going to take a course on how to be an author. It's just not the same thing. I said, plus, what's even greater is sometimes you'll get two of them together. And they don't always agree, but you're getting outstanding information.
Absolutely. That's the genius of it. You know, I'm great friends with Dean Wesley Smith. Yep. Dean and I have very disparate views about what the right way to do things is. Dean tries to write a book a week. I'm lucky these days in my 60s if I do a book every couple of years. But you know, there's a panoply of ways to approach this. And what you come out with is the whole smorgasbord at the end of the week. And even if you don't win, I mean, yes, you should win. Yes, you should try to win. You should try to write your best story, send it to us first. We're the highest paying, most, you get the best results, best reward if you enter our contest and win. But come to our forum, writersofthefuture.com, where we have a forum where some of the judges and Jody Lynn Nye, who's our coordinating judge, hang out, where many of the previous winners, who none of them are jealously guarding the secret. They're all sharing it. Wolf Moon, one of our guys, has built this thing he spells his name Wolf, W-U-L-F, but he has got Wolf,
good story.
The Wolf Pack, right? Where all these people who are, he's bringing up behind him. He's the Pied Piper amongst our previous winners. And we're all about that. We're all about, there's plenty of room. The water is fine. There's plenty of room. There's room for everybody.
Yes, there is too. And what was it? No, Karen. No, that's actually my copy. That's my autograph copy of the Howling Good Story. I gave all the ones away he already gave me.
Yeah. Right? It's coming up on the holiday season. You can't do better than this anthology. The best cutting edge stories. And every year there's an essay or two by some of the judges and a reprint of one or two of the judges' stories. And of course, brilliant covers by our writers, winners, and art. Glossy color page art. What's that?
I think well, all the stories are good. I think I want to say so. I read all the ones that've been since I've made friends with John, plus the books that's another 5. Well, 15 and 12, somewhere between 12 and 15. I had to sit down and count them. So far, I've enjoyed all the stories. Now, granted, they're not all the same, and they have different levels of how much I like them. But I haven't really disliked any of the stories.
So this is the thing. As a judge, I'm asked for my taste. We don't have a rubric. We don't have a scoring matrix that we use that says, how much for originality, how much for, mellifluous prose, how much for this, that. No, it is all just what we think as judges. And so it comes down to taste for sure. But also what we're looking for is to set aside our personal prejudices. I'm a science fiction writer, and I happen to read way more science fiction than fantasy. So when something comes in front of me and it's a work of, say, high epic fantasy, I have to turn off that part of me that says, will Rob like this? And ask the question is, will other people like this? Is this something that we should be sharing? And I don't, we have no taboos. We'll share anything in terms of, your political view or whatever you've got to say, as long as you say it evocatively and effectively. There's no censorship of ideas, but we ask, is it of a quality? Is somebody going to say at the end of reading some of these stories, you take half an hour to read a story, oh, that's 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back? Or are they going to say it was time well spent? And that's, as a judge, that's all I'm looking for, is to end up with a book that's got a couple of dozen stories where you'll say every one of them, they may not all of my taste, I like some better than, none of them were a waste of my time. That, I think, is all we can ask for from myself and the other judges.
Plus, one thing that's interesting too with these books, this is the most recent one, volume 40, is normally an anthology has a theme, and there is no theme for this. So you're going to have something across the boards. The main thing they share in common is that it's like PG-13, so it'll be age appropriate for middle school on up. But otherwise, there's nothing else that holds it together, because it's science fiction, fantasy, it's dystopian, it's, anything that fits that category of speculative. And then it's just great storytelling, a brilliant new twist on an old trope, a brand new, there's one thing that I've experienced too with Writers of the Future is usually it's about a half dozen years or so ahead of the curve of science fiction and fantasy, because these are the winners. These are the best new writers of science fiction and fantasy. So as they move up the ranks, it's going to be their storytelling that everybody's going to be reading. So that's why, like with, any of the things that became popular, you read them usually half a dozen to 10 years before you found the mainstream.
A perfect example is Nydia Corafor, who is now a judge of the contest, and just last year wrote her first, I think, full novel-length work. She'd been publishing novellas for a $1 million plus advance. But of course, we had her as a winner several years back. And, we had Stephen Baxter before he was the leading light of British hard science fiction. We had James Allen Gardner, 30-odd years ago, before he was, one of the major voices in kind of absurdist, surrealistic science fiction. We have all these people. Dean Wesley Smith was a winner very, very early on.
Volume 1.
Absolutely. So many. And what John Goodwin, the voice who was just speaking, who was the president of Authors Services, the publisher of the Writers of the Future anthologies, was saying is absolutely spot on. These writers, one of the things I said we look for are people wasting their time reading the story. The other thing is absolutely is this fresh, new, exciting, and they blow me, off my feet with these stories. I'm always amazed at how many times I say, gee, I wish I had thought of that idea or that way to tell that story or that narrative technique.
Yeah. How'd they think that? The one that still is to me is chilling is it was the story of where the Man Overboard story, Non-Zero by Tom Vandermolen. And he was in the Navy, and he had this idea because he was on whatever aircraft carrier it was, and he looked over the stern of the ship and just, would it be like Man Overboard? You'd never be able to find that person. So he took that scenario in space, and there was the female astronaut, and it's all the story of her ship left her thinking that she was dead, and she was alive, and so it was that Man Overboard theme. It was just so gritty. It's like, wow, it was an intense emotion how he told that story, and it's like, whoa, that was intense. That you can get that much emotion and intensity in a short story is just amazing. The brilliant authors that we have.
Yeah, it's really true. The anthology, you know, we talk a lot whenever we talk about the story about the contest, but there are far more people who are reading the anthology than are entering the contest.
Right.
The anthology is just a really good book of really cutting edge science fiction, fantasy, speculative literature, magic realism, a little horror, a little dystopia, and all that, alternate history. It's a really good read. And so even if you have no aspirations to be a writer, and most people who read science fiction, fantasy, they don't, they're readers. This is still the best buy you're going to find. John mentioned that a lot of anthologies are theme anthologies. And, you know, you get an anthology, Cats in Space, right? Or my wife, Carolyn, is in one about giant robots, not just robots, but giant robots. You know, after the 6 or 7 story about an 8 foot tall or an 8 story tall robot, you're thinking, this is kind of like the last story I read, you know. The variety, this is the variety pack, the sampler, the smorgasbord of what's the best and brightest young, well, new, I shouldn't say young, new writers are doing in the field.
So we call them our children, but they're like 65 years old.
Yeah.
I know,
There's no age limit. So we've had winners in the 60s, several times. You know, we've had winners that this is the second career, or it's a career they wanted to have, having gone through a career as a doctor or as a lawyer, decided, okay, I'm going to go back and give my hand at an author again. It's just it's amazing. We had the one, what was it, a couple of years ago? She lives in Florida. She's been a guest on your show, Joe, before too. But and she was with us in Florida, Tampa Comic-Con.
Yes, she was.
She wrote the one about the alternate history of going back and letting Hitler let him get to art school, and then all of a sudden she didn't have a future, because then the future that happened didn't happen anymore, because he became an artist, and he didn't become this Führer, and that changed the future for the Jewish people.
Not everybody.
Yeah,
that would have been a major change.
Yeah.
Well, you know, last year we started doing interviews so now I interview them before I come out to see them, and when I'm there, and then after on this show. So there's a marked difference. And so when I matter of fact, I made myself go back and listen, make sure I wasn't cracking up. So when I did the interviews pre them going to LA, they were pretty much one way. After them spending a week with y'all in LA and getting home for a week or two to assimilate it, they had a whole different attitude. And you can hear it in the shows clearly. I'm asking a lot of the same questions just to see. And, oh no, the answers are much different. They understand things much more clearly. They're all very appreciative of what they've learned, which is because nobody knows what they're getting into before they get there anyway. I mean, there's rumors, but, you know, just that. And of course, the 24-hour story is legendary. But other than that, I mean, they really don't know what they're getting into. And everybody, I mean, after I talked to them the second time, actually probably about the third time by this, they really just have so much of a different outlook. And they really, you know, what really is nice is they feel much more hopeful about the direction of their career. And,
yeah. Remember Cal, you know, the girl from Malaysia? Cal,
yeah. Oh, yeah. She was excellent.
Butter side down.
Spectacular writer.
Spectacular. But she was so convinced that she was like an outcast. And when she came, you know, she was like very quiet and reserved. And then she came to this realization, like, these are my people. They're just like me, you know, like I can be myself and not have to try to be different, you know. And what a lovely woman, you know. But she was so like beaten down by her nation, you know, having their fixed ideas against a female, let alone a female writer. And so realizing that she actually had one, and we had another girl too from several years ago. She was an illustrator winner from Turkey, and her teacher there told her she was getting bad grades because she wanted to do her art, and she said, no, give up, don't do it, you'll never make it, you're not, you cannot do this. And what she did to be able to get her own personal drive as an artist, and then she came out to USC here to go to college, and she just totally flourished. But it's just amazing how, the people here, what they've overcome to make it here. Not all of them, but some of them, especially with what you were talking about, Rob, on these other countries. It's not milk and cream, it's a definite rough road that they've had to travel. And so that when they make it here, sometimes they're even more appreciative. Some of them, we can't get them here because they can't get visas, because the countries know if they come here, they'll never come back.
What's Mr. Lawyer's name? Pablo, what's his name?
The one in Pedro N.
When he told me he was a lawyer, I was stunned. I was like, no way, you're way too nice of a guy to be a lawyer. He's like, no, really? I'm like, no, I thought he was messing with me and John. And John and I was like, no way, you're not a lawyer. He's like, that's not. He said, but every time we talk to him now, that particular day he had an event going on he was attending when he was talking to us. Matter of fact, it was pretty late at night when he talked to us where he was. I've talked to him a couple times since then. He seems to be, or at least his country seems to be embracing him, might be a better way of saying it. And
we had one winner, Mason Matak, who was from Iran. We could never get him out here, obviously, for various serious political considerations.
He'd probably never go back.
But I had him as a guest once. I had to use whatever. He had to go to a special studio where he could get a line to be able to do the show. And we did it using, I forget which method it was. It may have been through WeChat. We had to go one of those other apps to be able to get him on to record him. He was just so alive and so bright, and so he felt so honored to have been able to win. But he said, I'll never get over there. But it was he was such a good guy, and we had
it's a shame too.
Africa we couldn't get here because they can't get a visa.
Yeah, until there's some kind of normalization, those are going to be hard countries to get out of. Jamie, oh no, Rob's great in person. Oh no, so him and Kevin, Tim and Jody are by far the favorites. Shouldn't even said that out loud, but they are. And when I talk to the different ones, no, they like everybody. I didn't want y'all to take it out of context, but that's who gets talked about the most. And when I'm asking questions, well, because they all have different things they're into, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi or a combination of both.
And Rob's Canadian. They're always just so darn nice.
Yeah, some damn Canadians,
You can bump into them. You can walk into them, and they will apologize.
Yes, you never know. Canadians a lot of times have chocolate.
Says this from knowledge because he's married to a beautiful Canadian woman.
Yeah, that's an evil Canadian. But anyway, we know it. I tell her all the time she's not a Canadian anymore. She's an LA girl. Last time
she's Canadian through and through.
I said, you not know Canadian anymore. You're an LA girl. She said, I will hurt you.
You know what? That LA, I forget where it is currently. Mm-hmm. It's either the third or fourth largest Canadian city in the sense that there are more Canadian-born people living in LA than except for Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal in Canada. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because of show business largely and other things or trying to get into show business. Yeah. A lot of Canadian waiters down there.
Exactly. I would say a lot of waiters.
Yeah. Well, Canada broke into show business. And I mean, they were doing everybody sci-fi for a long time.
Well, in Vancouver, yes. Stanley Park in Vancouver is every planet on Stargate. And Toronto is where they're filming the two current live action Star Trek series, Star Trek Discovery, which just ended, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So yeah, we have, of course, our dollar is only worth about 70 American cents right now. So, but has about the same buying power in Canada.
I mean, y'all have some really good.
It goes farther up here. We've got great crews. We've got great.
I seen that new special effects Hydro, that one where they build some of it, but they use hologram for the rest of it. It is fabulous. I mean,
the virtual studios.
It's really nice.
60-degree ones. That's like
I mean, they did. The one I seen in Toronto was fabulous. I mean, look at this thing. I said it's got to cut production time down and eventually one day cost down. Well, guys, I'm tired of getting 12 episodes a year. I want my 25 episodes a year. I'm sorry, I'm old school.
Yeah, nobody does 25 anymore.
I was not born with that bullshit of 12 episodes a year. I'm like,
how many are 6 now, right? 6 is considered a season order.
Oh, yeah, a lot of times it is 6. It's 6 and 6.
No,
a lot of times
it was 8, and now it's been clawed back 6. It's incredible. Yeah,
well,
it's
Jack,
so
I
hard
don't
to
even
get
watch. I don't watch
invested.
Doctor Who anymore. They give you 8 episodes, and it's not even worth watching anymore.
Yeah.
It's what do you mean? I don't care if it's woke or not. It's still Doctor Who, but it's 8 episodes just hacks me off.
Well, of course, the thing is they're spending, adjusted for inflation, like 10 times as much money on the current Doctor Who than they were on this videotape thing with the monsters made out of Glad garbage bags that they made in the 60s.
Well, Disney owns it now. So somebody asked me, was I happy Disney bought it? I said no. And they're like, well, I said, because Disney just can give it. Disney's got this thing of overdoing things too much. I mean, like when they gave everything to J.J. Abrams. I love J.J. Abrams, but there was no content to these movies. It was just, let's blow some shit up, for lack of a better way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I need, believe it or not, I need a little content in the movie. I need some talking, maybe some hugging, something. I just need something other than blowing stuff up. I need a plot. I need something.
JJ makes perfect JJ movies. He was the wrong guy to do Star Trek, for instance.
Oh yeah, he definitely was wrong. I
mean, explosions, running explosions, blah 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 guy.
He was, and then it was a shame. What's that, Christopher? Well, no, I mean, JJ, it's not that he made bad movies or even the actors were bad. It was just not Star Trek. And so, if Gene Roddenberry was alive between Discovery and the new Star Trek, he'd had a cardiac arrest. Not that, and see, I like Discovery, but I tell people all the time, don't go on Discovery looking for good Star Trek. Go into Discovery looking for good sci-fi. If you do, you won't be disappointed. If you go looking for good Star Trek, you're going to be disappointed. It takes too many shortcuts and changes too many things around. And they forget that all this lore has been written down since the original Star Trek episode. So it's hard to rewrite. And then like when they went to the 29th century, they forgot that that's what the Doctor got his thing from. So they knew about the 29th century. So, I mean, there was just some things they made. And then we're not going to get into the sperm drive. We're just going to leave that alone. It's I never heard about that in any other one to Discovery. But if you take Discovery for sci-fi, it is good sci-fi. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's a little crazy. It's a little fun. It jumps around a lot. Star Trek, it is not. But still, you can still enjoy it. You mean
Discovery? Yeah, well, Rob Sawyer is like the prince of Star Trek. He's like
Star Trek's always good. I mean,
spirit of Star Trek.
Particularly the original series, but yes, I have here just a hand in case I need it. Where's my camera? Here? Got a hand phaser right here, so don't give me any beef there.
Give no shit. We are. So how do you like Strange New Worlds?
I loved Strange New Worlds first season, and the second season, which is all we've had now, was very interesting. But because this is what you said a moment ago, Joe, we're getting such short seasons. I was not happy that 3 of, I think they did 8. 3 of the 8 were kind of gimmick shows. Yeah. They did the show where they were living in Dr. Mbenga's daughter's fairy tale. They did the show where it was the musical episode. They did the show that was the crossover with the animated series Lower Decks. Any one of those would have been fine. But I didn't need 3/8 of my Star Trek to be gimmick shows instead of exploring strange new worlds.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Civilizations and bold.
If there had been 25 episodes, I could have lived with 3 of them.
With 25, you can do things like that. Like Trouble with Tribbles is beloved. David Gerald, great friend of mine. David
Gerald,
what?
I even like the Deep Space Nine version.
If it had been one of 8 in the second season, instead of one of 24 or 30 in the second season, people say, what are you doing a comedy show for? Well, we got serious stuff to do here.
Yes, that's
you got room to breathe when you have a lengthy season.
Yeah, when you have a good season like that. It's well, like I said, I even like the Deep Space Nine version of Tribbles when they
Trials
went back
and Tribulations. That was brilliant.
What do you mean, Chris? No, Deep Space Nine was good. I know a lot. For some reason, people gave Deep Space Nine trouble. I'm not sure why. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Voyager. I even enjoyed Enterprise. I thought it was weird them using a famous actor though, because Scott Bakula was kind of famous for us.
He was, it was interesting. He was probably inappropriate in the role, and anyways, doesn't matter. But enough about Star Trek. We're here to talk about L100 Winners of the Future.
Exactly, right in the future.
So wait a minute. So do y'all get any like copycat episodes? I mean, people trying to pass off like Star Trek to Writers of the Future? I mean, there's a lot.
Jody is our coordinating judge, and she has a cadre of
first readers
who know, no, we're not going to accept a knockoff of, and Star Wars knockoffs are more common than Star Trek knockoffs, to be honest. But we're not going to, it's got to have original, it's got to have spark, it's got to have something fresh in it. So all of that is weeded out before it goes to me and Kevin Anderson and Tim Powers and Orson Scott Card and Nancy Kress and all the other judges, Nydia Corafor and so forth, Hugh Howey, all of us, Steve Sterling, Greg Benford, all of that stuff that is just imitative, has no spark to it, or is clumsily written, or is, as John had said earlier, not PG, not acceptable, because we do sell a lot of these books into high school and middle school classes.
Yeah, I always tell everybody PG-13.
But all of that stuff is weeded out. And what we see, I forget what is the good part, the wheat or the chaff. The wheat is the good part. Jody keeps the chaff.
We want the wheat. We want the wheat.
We want the wheat.
Unless it's an allergen for you, in which case we'll take the, we'll call it the, whatever that you do that's not an allergen for you to consider.
Yes, I'm not celiac disease, but my brother is. So he can have the wheat. I'll send him the chaff.
There we go. Yes.
Peter, that's what you're getting for Christmas. A stocking full of chaff.
Yes.
Stephen Morris is writing in. Stephen is from LA, actually. So nice to see you. Wait, I know you then. You the guy at the Roosevelt, the guy I was bitching about the iced tea. I know who you are then. Anyway. He says, don't forget that you get a lot of out of class education. And I know what he's talking about. So sometimes, they'll meet in the lobbies and have dinner or lunch or have a cocktail or something and talk about the day or what was going on. There's a lot of information exchanged, and those kind of things are invited to lunch or stuff like that. Why these judges invite you to their lunches beyond me? I'd be like, no, I'll see you in an hour. No, they're all I got to say, all the judges are really just nice people who go way out of their way to help him. That's what Stephen was talking about. He has noticed when he was working the bar that there'd be a bunch of the judges sitting around talking, and there was always 3, 4, 5 people standing around them or sitting next to them, which is true. I mean, that's part of it. And doing that on your own time like that is a big plus, because one, it just shows who you really are, and two, it helps these people to realize, hey, they really do actually care. I mean, this is their time. We're not sitting in a classroom. We're not learning.
Absolutely.
This is these people's time that are here who might want to eat their dinner or have a cocktail or Coke by themselves or something.
When we're there, we're 100% there for the winners, the runners up. Whenever I'm there during the day, so right next door, or just around the corner, is California Pizza Kitchen.
Yes,
and I go there for lunch every day.
Yes,
because it's cheap enough that the students can afford it. We always show up, and we got whatever it is, 7 people, 8 people, 12 people. The servers know me there, and I just set up the table, and we're in and out because we only have an hour, or maybe a little more than an hour for the break, because it's a very, very intensive week of workshops. Yes, but I want to give them every minute, and we call it BarCon, which is a term out of science fiction conventions where people hang around the lobby bar of the host hotel. Well, our host hotel is Lowe's Hollywood, right? Yeah. Which has an overpriced but nice bar in the lobby.
Yes, they do.
We all go and hang out there,
overpriced, but they're nice.
In the evening. But also, this is the secret, on the second floor, some of the winners usually go to the local, there's I think it's a 7-Eleven across the street or something, and they just get bottles of pop and bags of chips. And on the second floor, some of the judges hang out with those who can't afford, to go down to the bar and pay $10 for a glass of Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I know. Last year I bought them. I ordered pizza for the bunch of them that was sitting
there. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Like, I didn't even show up. I just ordered the pizza and said, "Just tell me."
You're a good man.
I had interviews scheduled. It was. I seen them all down there just snacking on garbage. I said, "Well, you know what? I got a little extra money. Let me send them some pizza." And they were happy. Next day when I seen them, oh, thank you, son. It's not a big deal, and hope you enjoy it. And I do like hooking y'all up with everybody because sometimes they'll be off standing. Last year was particularly funny. There's two different groups. They just stand there like little puppies staring. I'm like, come here, you want to talk to them? Oh, no. I said, no, come sit down. No, I'm not. I don't want to interfere with that. I said, well, I'm getting up and leaving these two guys alone who have been aggravating for hours because we were talking about Rush. And we were talking about Rush and what else we were talking. Anyway, it was two different conversations.
Kevin Anderson, if it's Rush.
Yeah, exactly.
It was definitely Kevin Anderson. It was Wesley,
the Canadian band Rush.
It was Dean and it was Kevin. And we were talking. I said, well, I'm getting ready to get up. I said, well, why don't y'all come sit down? I said, they're sitting here. I said, they're not drinking. They're just having a Coke and snacking. I think some fries or something. I said, if you want to talk to them, I'll introduce you before I go upstairs. Really, would you? I said, yeah, sure. Because I'd already asked if they were staying down there. And they said, yes. I said, well, let me go get these guys. And it was like you were giving these kids chocolate or something, man. I mean, they were so happy with it. And I just left and went on whatever I had planned on doing. I was going to harass. I think I was going to harass Carmen, actually. And but it's just nice to see it like that.
I just want to emphasize here, anybody can enter. Unless you've what we call pro'd out. If you're already a professionally published writer, no, this is a contest for beginners or for beginning artists. But anybody can enter anywhere in the world. And unlike an awful lot of contests these days, no entry fee. No money flows to us. You get your paid trip to LA. You get put up in a beautiful hotel. It's all about giving back. From the judge's point of view, from Mr. Hubbard's point of view, from everybody who's involved in it, the whole ethos here is, hey, science fiction or related genres have been very good to us. How do we show our gratitude? Well, the people who helped us were ahead of us. We can't help them. They were already established when we were starting, but we can turn around and reach back with that helping hand. And every single one of us judges has that ethos in our DNA. We just do it all the time for the contest and for in our regular day-to-day existence as well. Somebody needs help as a writer. We never shut them down. We say, well, I don't have time to read your whole manuscript, blah, blah, blah. But here's a piece of advice, or this is the book you have to read, or here's the one tip that's going to change your perspective and get you off of that writer's block you're on, or whatever it is.
And it's one thing too, is as an author, it's an opportunity for you to create something, send it off, and you've got nothing to lose on it, you know. And it's amazing the number of people that I've talked to over the years who had entered the contest when they were first starting their career, you know, like 20, 30, 40 years ago. I found one, I don't know how it got routed to me. It was a little printout of the one of the quarters winners or quarter finalists back, I don't know, 30 years ago. And it was Lois McMaster Bujold, you know. So you were, Rob, you were in there as well as one of the
absolutely. And the coordinating judge Algis Budrus gave me fabulous advice that helped me sell my first major sale, Golden Fleece. In fact, as I'm sitting here in my living room, the cover of the the August 1988 Amazing Stories, or September, I guess it was, issue that had my cover story, Golden Fleece, painted by Bob Eggleton, who went on to be one of our judges and writers of the Illustrators of the Future. It's hanging right there in front of me, the original painting that I bought 30 years ago. Because Al, I wouldn't have sold it if Al just hadn't said, you know, what I got sent back was the cover page. This was back in the day when we sent in paper manuscripts through the postal service. Now it's all electronic. We submitted a cover page, and he sent back the cover page, and he'd written in pencil, but he'd written all kinds of notes for me that were, advice I would have paid a fortune for, but it didn't cost me a cent. Well, it cost me a couple of stamps to enter the contest back in the day. And I will forever be grateful to him. His name is in the acknowledgments of my first novel, Algis A.J. Budrus. The original coordinating judge now, Dave Wolverton took over the job, Tim Powers, Jody Lanai. I did it 1 year, but Al just set the template for how this workshop is run. He's passed away now, but his presence looms largely.
Lives on for sure.
And he was a great writer, great writer in his own right.
Yeah. And also half a dozen, no, maybe longer now, maybe 8 years ago, at an American Library Association convention, I was there, and I ran into Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. And I said, "If somebody with Rise to the Future," he says, "Oh yeah, I entered. I was an honorable mention once." You know, so it's just amazing the number of people that just, it's there for you. You know,
hey, take that, Joe Hill. I got 3 honorable mentions. And my dad, it wasn't even famous.
Yeah. And, but Brandon Sanderson got honorable mention too when he entered before he proed out. I think
that's all Kevin Anderson got as well.
Yeah.
Who also entered the contest around the time I did, late 80s.
Yeah. And then he proed out. And I remember when he came up after he became a judge and he was, had his first essay published in Writers of the Future. And the first thing he did when he went on the stage, and he got and looked around, raised up in arms and said, I've finally been published in Writers of the Future.
That's right. I remember that moment. I was there in the audience.
Yeah. So he entered like 17, 18, 19 times or so before he proed out.
Yeah.
And,
but now, of course, he's one of the biggest names in the entire industry.
Yeah.
With the new, I guess it's Sisterhood of Dune TV series, not based on Frank Herbert's Dune novels, but on Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert, both of whom are our judges.
Yes.
Their original Dune novels, now a major TV series.
And it's amazing.
Wait, when is this coming out? Just put a stop on everything now.
Kevin just came back from somewhere LA, I think, where he saw the big billboards everywhere. It's imminent.
Well, we took a picture of it. Emily and I were driving home.
You sent it to him. I see what happened.
So I need to know when this comes out now.
Okay,
y'all need to let me know. Anybody listening out there, if y'all know, y'all need to write to me and tell me. You'd think I know these big guys. I'd know when this was coming out.
But yeah, he was like so excited, and he started sending it everywhere. When we saw it there, then we pulled over, took a picture, cropped it, sent it to him, and he was like, he was still in wherever he was in Europe at the time as a guest of honor or something at some conference, and he got it. He's like, whoa, and he's just like so excited because it was right there at the entrance of Hollywood, the big billboard as you drive into Hollywood.
Big billboard with his name on it.
Yes.
Based on the novels by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very unusual. You know, even Game of Thrones advertising doesn't tend to mention George R.R. Martin. Even The Handmaid's Tale advertising doesn't tend to mention Margaret Atwood. So this was a real coup that on the billboard, there were the names of the authors who had written the book.
At the very top, across the top.
The very top.
Those are names, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's definitely worked. I mean, he's one of the most industrious authors I know.
And a workaholic. He's a little bit younger than me, I think a year younger than me.
Yeah.
And he works 10 times harder than me. But I love him. He's my brother. We started in this field together. We have the same hairline. We're just,
I feel bad.
What a wonderful, and his wife Rebecca was also one of our judges. Rebecca Besta,
yes, yeah,
a very fine writer in her own right, also one of our judges.
Yes,
just two of my oldest and dearest friends in the industry.
Yeah, when he first started, because when he was writing the Dune books with Brian after, because that's when I first met Brian. They were on a tour. They went to Romans in Pasadena, nearby here in Los Angeles, and Kevin would call me because it happened a couple times. He said, "We're coming to Romans. I don't think anybody's going to show up. Can you please help?" So I'd call a bunch of we'd load up a couple of different vans and we'd go there, and the majority of the audience were the people I brought there. Obviously, he doesn't have that problem anymore, but at that point when he was just starting out with Brian, it was like they weren't getting the support because it wasn't the big name that they've since become. And, just when we go to conventions like San Diego Comic-Con, he'd come there and he'd come by our booth and he'd have 2 boxes of books one under each arm. He was going to her signings. He'd bring his books there and set up and do the signings. And then he was constantly schlepping his books. He was just always hustling. And we'd always have meetings because he loved what I did to promote Writers of the Future and how I was doing different things. And he'd like, say, okay, so what about this? I'm looking at doing this. And I said, well, this is maybe a better way. So he said, okay, I'm always trying to emulate what you did with Writers of the Future. And then when I got going with the podcast, when he started his master's program, he'd say, okay, can we do a show on your podcast? And because we used that, talk about his show, and then people would sign up for it. And then after 2 seasons, it was not a problem, then just it overbooks then at the beginning. And, it's so popular now. But he's such a good guy. He's such a good guy, first of all, but he's so industrious and he so wants to help others and basically return the flow that he got, that made him, what he is now. Just a super guy. But that's kind of like when I select judges, I go through, and there's a lot of big names I won't ask, because one of the things that's important for me is that the desire to help others, to help pass the baton, and see that carries forward. And I've talked to other famous guys, really nice people, and says, no, that's not my big thing, helping other, so, okay, that's cool, have a good life, and we'll be friends, but there's a certain type of a person to become a judge. And Nettie, you mentioned Nettie, there was just a spark about her I just really liked. I just fell in love with her as a person, and just followed her career, stayed in touch with her every time she'd come to Comic-Con in San Diego. We'd go have lunch someplace and just talk and chat. And then she got bigger and bigger. Then I invited her to become a judge, and then she kept on getting bigger and bigger. And she's just, she just does so well. And her main problem is she bites off more than she can chew, because she's a one woman force.
One woman, yes.
And she's got her daughter now, and she wanted her daughter to go to college and university like she did and get her master's and doctorate. And we said, I don't want to do that.
Dr. Nettie Okorafor.
Exactly. She said, I don't want to do that. And so Nettie had to come to grips with that she just wanted, she just wants to go to business school and become a business manager. And then
kids are these days.
But said, that's perfect. You need that. So talking with, with her daughter, just who's going through her business school at DeVry or whatever it is, to be able to become Nettie's manager, because she's just like, she has so many projects going on with Hollywood, TV series as well as movies, as well as doing the comics and graphic novels that she's done, and then her own book series. She sometimes goes like, and then before, when she was teaching at the same time, she had to cut out the teaching. It was just, a little too much. And I'd call her, where are you?
Workaholic. Jesse, it's too late to get there this year. You can't win for this year. They've already closed shop. So you'll have to submit for 42.
Yeah.
So 41's closed. I think they closed it. It's been about a month,
September,
right?
Yeah, we closed the end of September.
So
we're in first quarter of year 42 now.
Okay, I know John. Okay, John, this guy says, since I know you, can you get in late? He's going to tell you no.
I'm not a judge. I'm at the mercy of whatever Robert and his fellow judges tell me are the winners. I read the stories after they tell me these are the winners.
John's in the same boat I am. He's the big boss, but unfortunately, we got people underneath us that like to run around and do everything. So it makes it, it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
No, it's a total good thing, because that's the integrity of the contest. It's a true meritocracy. The judges have no idea who they're voting for. It's the best. And then we find out who number 356 is. And then that person gets invited.
So that you just got to win. That's all you can do is win. Yep. Unless you happen to be working at one of the hotels where they're at. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. And then you can sit off in a distance with your little speaker and listener. So I don't know what to tell you guys. Win. Just win. Enter, become famous.
Enter and win.
Yeah. Enter and win, or just become famous, and maybe he'll invite you to be a judge. I don't know what to tell you. You can always, but that's the only two ways you're getting in there. So whatever you like to write. No, writersofthefuture.com has all the rules, and I say this every time I talk to y'all. You go to writersofthefuture.com, everything you need there. I always tell everybody PG-13. Don't get gross. Don't get sloppy. Not a bunch of sex. Just think of something that you would let your, say, 12-year-old read or your 14-year-old read. And I enjoy them. So for me, it's nice not to have a bunch of profanity in something. I hear it so much and so many other things that I watch. So it's kind of nice for me. It's more laid back. And I grew up on TV that was more like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Today's TV
is a good story.
Yeah. So
I just want to underscore here. We're PG in the content, but a lot of the stories are very sophisticated in their use of language. Now, there's some that are very simple and straightforward. That's fine too. But there's also some really beautiful, well-crafted writing adult literature doesn't necessarily mean dirty literature. It can be very sophisticated
that's very
without being in any way offensive. And we have some craftspeople submitting stories, and of course, same thing with the artists. The quality of the art. There's nothing YA picture book about it, except occasionally when that's a perfectly fine thing to enter. But these are sophisticated stories. And when I was 12, I appreciated a sophisticated story.
Yeah, well, I still do now. At 61,
now, what the actual rule says is excessive violence or sex and the use of profane, vulgar, racist, or offensive words determined by the judges will result in a story being rejected. Entries may not have been previously. So that's the main thing on it is you don't need that for stories.
Yeah, and Jody takes, or her cadre of pre-readers take care of that. By the time the stories come to us, we don't have to, me and Kevin and Tim Powers and Todd McCaffrey, we're not making those judgments. They've already been made. If it's handed to us, it's de facto eligible to win the award. I don't think I've ever seen one disqualified after it's been handed on to the judges for some. It would be if it turned out it was generated by AI, or if it had been previously published, or if the writer had, already exceeded our limit on how many sales you can have before you enter the contest. Yeah, those are the only reasons a story that went to the judges would possibly be disqualified.
Well, Dan, they don't know. So the books are not themed. I mean, they're not all sci-fi or they're all fantasy. They're actually several genres in there.
It's a mix.
Yeah,
very rich. It's a really nice mix. Some usually have more of one than others. I mean, it just depends what year we're talking about here. They're all good books. I mean, I enjoy the stories. So John usually sends me a copy, not for sale copy, and I go through it. And then I'll get my copy that when I get autographed that I read on the airplane, usually coming in. And then I'll probably read it. I'm a pretty fast reader, so I'll probably read it again the night I get there because I'm usually kind of wore out. So after dinner and I see John and Emily and them, I'll go hang out in the room and probably read it one more time just before I start doing more interviews, because he sends it to me now so I can do the interviews pre the event, which is nice because that gives me a whole different type of interview to do when I'm there. So, and then when we do this show afterwards, I can take the three together and see how this actually plays out for everybody. And I got to say, man, it helps these people in ways I just can't put into words. It immensely changes each individual's life. Now, whether they're going to become famous or not, that's still up to them and their hard work. But these guys, I should say these guys and these ladies, give them a big kick in the boot start here to get going.
We're running 62% right now, 62%. That when you Google them, you'll find them with additional publications or art post-winning. So that's a pretty good success right there.
You know what, guys?
It's better than the famous workshops, Clarion West, Odyssey, the others.
Yeah,
we have a better success rate than anybody else in the industry.
Yeah.
Wait, so when I got involved with John, I gave him a lot of trouble, but it was only because I had dealt with other contests, and frankly, I was kind of like, most of them. I don't want to get into it, but most of them were just kind of like, okay, you're wasting my time. Whether they were paying for it or not, it was just a waste of time. And there was a lot of little scammy things that went on inside of them, like you had to pay for your way there, you had to pay for your trophy, and I mean, come on, that's not a contest. Anybody can go do that. I mean, shit, I can go buy a trophy tomorrow. I just want a damn trophy. That's why there's none back here. Every year I win runners up for news. On the flip side, and you up on the cover, you still don't see no trophies back there because I want the winning trophy. I don't want the other one. I got lots of runner-up trophies around this house for different shit. I want the winning one. People, writersofthefuture.com, galaxypress.com if you want to buy something. Rob, tell them where they can find you in case they want to get one of your books.
I'm lucky enough to have been the first science fiction writer in the world to have a website. So my website is sfwriter.com. S is in science, F is in fiction, writer.com.
I love you.
Me out there.
So go check him out, guys. Buy some. Remember, we're in November now, guys. We are short under 40 days to Christmas now. We're like 38 days or something to Christmas. So get to buying. Get to buying. Get out there. But no, we always give books away. We start right after Thanksgiving. We give them all the way through the first year. But you don't always get them before Christmas. Some people will, but not everybody, because a lot of stuff. And if you live in Canada, unfortunately, Canada has made it really expensive to send books up there these days. I can send a book to Australia cheaper than I can send the damn thing to Canada. Don't ask me. You have to go talk to Mr. Trudeau. I have nothing to do with that. But still, if you do win and you are from Canada, we will still send it to you. It doesn't matter what it costs. We're going to still send it to you.
In about 15 days, I'm going to be doing our Hollywood Christmas parade, and we'll have our Grand Marshal, Mr. Jeremy Renner, is going to be there. And
Carmen said he's going to bring some pictures on with him on the 30th, and we're going to show pictures before the parade. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have Hawkeye with us.
Yeah, so we're gonna be picked. Well, no, they do it every year. Oh yeah, they do it every year. Look, I've been wanting to go since he told me about it. Just for some reason, I can't never seem to get down there at that time of year. What is it, like the 10th or something? The 5th, whatever.
14th year as being the green.
No,
room.
but I mean the date of the parade.
Oh, it's always the Sunday after Thanksgiving. This year it's the 1st of December.
Okay, there you go.
Which
December
means nothing
1st.
to Robert, but anyway, it's still the 1st of December.
It's
American
probably,
Thanksgiving.
it's probably pretty in LA that time of year. You know, LA. I mean, what's the weather like in LA?
A different Thanksgiving for Canada. So the weather is going to be, it'll be chilly. It's not going to be cold by Canada standards, but it'll be chilly by, I mean, in Los Angeles, when it gets below 70, people bring out their parkas. They're so wussed out here. But it'll be probably in maybe by nighttime be in the 50s. So it'll be chilly. People, but at least you can dress appropriately for a Christmas parade.
Yesterday it was 83 here. I think today it was 78. So we're headed down. So we got a cold front coming through, which means
is it
time it gets
Rob?
What's that?
Has it gotten cold for you yet?
Not yet. No, it's been we've had some nice days actually. But they'll be here soon. November. We'll get some. It's a 50-50, even less likely than 50-50 these days that we get a white Christmas. We really get hammered in January and February here in Toronto.
I noticed a lot of the world seems to be shifting now that the cold weather
world's changing.
Coming in January. Yeah, it's definitely. What do you mean, Chris? That may not actually be global warming causing that. That might just be a shift. I'm not saying it's not global warming. For anybody writes to me, and that's not what I was saying. Jesus, people. I was simply saying that some of this weather may be just shifting patterns. That's all I was saying. Don't even get me started. Leave me alone. God, I'm going to see
on that note, Joe.
That's right. We're getting out of here.
Bury yourself deeper.
Yes, we're getting out of here. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to United Public Radio and the Authors Quill. Be sure to check out Mr. Rob J. Sawyer's site. Be sure you sign up for writersfuture.com. And until next week, I am off until Wednesday, so I will see y'all then. Good night, everybody.
Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.